So before we start anything, we want to talk about how to take notes virtually. We're going to assume that everybody's starting school virtually, and we're not sure when you'll come back. One of the things that we notice is that everyone feels like they have to print every piece of paper that is given to you, but that's just not true. So what I want you to do is I want you to have a notebook or some pieces of paper that are specifically for your algebra course. Before you take notes on a unit, you want to make sure that you have your unit vocabulary. So in your It's Learning vocab, you have guaranteed vocabulary, supporting vocabulary, and cognitive vocabulary. You definitely need to include anything that is under the guaranteed section. Sometimes the supporting vocabulary might be something that we'd already expect you to know, like independent and dependent variables are from 6th grade math. So if you're like, oh, I remember what those are, maybe you don't have to write the definition, but for anything that is guaranteed, as in it is new and we want to make sure that you have it by the end of the unit, you would include in your vocabulary. Okay, so make sure you have your vocab for Unit 1 before you start taking notes in Unit 1. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to be using the left side of the screen, which is the notes that you would be taking on Tuesday, September 1st. So make sure you date your notes and give them a title. So the title of that day is Domain and Range. So we'll be watching the video. This is a video recording of Mrs. Cullum's class giving these notes. So same notes, and we're going to translate that into virtual learning, taking notes on a piece of paper.
So we said yesterday that the domain is the set of what?
All input values.
All input values. And the range is?
Output values.
Output values. Or X and Y. Okay. What's another notation we could use for Y?
Range.
What's another notation we could use for Y? What kind of notation? Okay, you got it. F of X, function notation. Okay, this type of illustration is called a mapping diagram. This particular one shows that each element or each number in the domain has just one arrow coming from it to go to the range. Function.
Non-function. There's
Okay.
not multiple arrows coming from the X value.
Okay. So this is a function.
Wait, how? Because there's not multiple arrows coming
Only one arrow
-2 and -1 are both going to follow.
from
Yeah, but they're not.
Yeah, but there's
each
only one arrow coming out of
input.
the numbers. It's the
Okay.
arrow that matters.
So now I also want you to notice that these can be listed as ordered pairs, showing the relation. They can be listed as data sets, and we practiced doing our data set braces yesterday, remember that?
Yeah.
And how fun they are. We have 5 different values for the domain, but we're only using 3 unique numbers in the range, so we only list those once. Any questions so far?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so the domain can also be described not only as the input, but also as the values of independent variables.
Input.
All input? That's so smart.
Yeah.
Okay. In science, you'll hear this referred to as the manipulated variable.
The one that doesn't change.
Independent.
Okay. And then the range is the set of dependent.
It doesn't change.
Dependent.
Okay. So definitions, the domain is the set of all input or independent. The range is the set of all output or dependent.
So note that when she started talking about what domain is and range is, and I'd already written that up here, I went ahead and said, oh, let me just add this to my definitions. So leaving yourself some space for further notation is helpful. When she said mapping diagram, I made sure I wrote that. We can write X and Y up there as it was in the picture. We wrote ordered pairs. We know that X comes before Y, and so my domain when listed was my X values. And my range when they were listed were the Y values. So notice, does this look exactly like the piece of paper that she's copying from or that she's writing on? No, this is not the same, but it includes all of the same material. Okay.
Okay, so now I want you to practice making your data sets for the domain and the range.
Oh, that's fire. Content. Whoa.
So here, for the domain, I'm just listing the first numbers in each ordered pair. Those are the X coordinates. Mm-hmm. And you can choose whether to list these in the order in which they're used or from least to greatest.
I just didn't know what to put in, like, for the domain and range. But now I
Yeah. Okay, you ready for the mapping diagram?
Yeah.
I already did all of them.
Good. Okay, so 9, negative 6, 4, and 8.
So,
5, negative 5.
Notice I have the example from the ordered pairs, but she's going on to the mapping diagram, and I feel like I already have an example of a mapping diagram up here, so if you feel like you're falling behind or you'd have to watch a video and pause right there, you can go ahead and just accept, like, this is my mapping diagram example. So we've got a mapping diagram example and ordered pairs, and that's where keeping a highlighter nearby is also helpful.
3, 7. Okay. Okay, so y'all ready for this?
Trying to draw this thing on the internet. It's so hard. We're on the internet now.
Remember, you only write down the number each time. I mean, only one time, no matter how many times it's used
for what?
in the data set or in the oval in the mapping diagram.
Oh, this is so hard to memorize.
Okay. So this is a really important term, discrete. So circle it. Discrete graphs have distinct ordered pairs. In other words, all of the points are separate.
All right, so I wanted to make sure that word discrete was left on this page because everything on this page was discrete. So I made sure I put it in a little space. Now, if you had to go on to the next page, that would be fine. But something that I wrote down over here was only write down the number one time because she said remember. And if a teacher tells you to remember something or has said it a couple times, you're definitely going to want to write that down. Okay? So this is just an example. This video of Ms. Cullum's notes will be available on the day of this lesson, but your teacher will also go through this with you as you're in your class. We're not going to continue with that because this is just a quick note about taking virtual notes, but something we want to point out is make sure that you highlight important information or examples. Make sure that you highlight or take note of your vocabulary. So I know that domain, range, discrete were all part of my vocabulary list. Highlighters are helpful for that. Include diagrams if your teacher is using them. Follow along with your teacher and try to stay organized. If you have questions, write them down. If you are in a virtual class, raise your hand and ask them. Okay, thank you.